Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Financial Planning Explained, and I'm your host, Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. As you know, the 6 areas of financial planning also include estate planning. And estate planning has a lot of different pieces to it, and I am delighted to talk about today a subsection of estate planning in the form of special needs planning. And what I have today, my guest today is Steve Potts of Herr Potts Potts. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to the show. Hey, is it coincidence that Potts sounds a lot like one of the names in the in your company?
That's true.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
So
yes.
tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Well, we are a law firm located in Wayne, PA,
Okay.
and we also have offices out in Westchester, Pennsylvania. We do estate planning, estate administration, probate, and we have a focus on special needs planning.
Okay, excellent. So tell me a little bit, what is special needs planning?
So special needs planning, it's a pretty wide gamut of what it covers, but I would say most of the time you're looking at how can families leave assets to a special needs child and preserve their eligibility for governmental benefits.
Okay, define special needs. Somebody disabled, what would define special needs?
We're usually looking at, are they going to be receiving government benefits that there would be an income or resource limit where they can't have over, say, a certain amount of assets or a certain amount of income in a year. And that's where we would need to be able to set up a trust, to maybe fund for them to supplement those governmental benefits that they would be getting, but that it doesn't put them over the eligibility limits.
Okay, so what does one need to do to qualify for governmental benefits?
Well, the really kind of depends on what that government benefit is.
Is this the state government or federal?
And it could be both.
Okay.
It could be both. And what that would really look like is, in general, they would want to look at what your resources are, what your bank statements look like. If you have any regular trust set up for you, is there a retirement account that you're a beneficiary of, or it's your own? And then they would be looking at what type of income you have.
Okay. So, again, give me some ideas of examples of people who have needed special needs, or how do they qualify? I mean, you have to qualify not so much. I mean, there are going to be people out there who don't have assets and don't have trusts, but they're obviously not special needs. What are special needs? I have a client who has a child who has severe autism, and I know they have special needs trust established for them.
Right.
But what would qualify someone as having special needs and qualifying for state government?
Yeah, I mean, that's usually when you apply for certain types of benefits, the county offices are going to look at what is the disability, what makes them qualified to be able to get these resources. And where my sort of focus would come in is, okay, you have been eligible for these governmental benefits. All right, now you're coming to me, families come to me to say, we don't want to not include them in our will. We don't want to just leave it up to governmental benefits that they have. We want to provide something more to them. And what are the mechanisms that we can use to do that?
So generally what you're talking about is you're establishing the special needs for the children who have the special needs, but for when the parents who are the supporters, when they pass. Is that what you're saying?
That's usually it. There are different types of special needs trusts that are out there. But I would say that the typical situation is mom, dad come in, they have 2 children, one has special needs, they want to include them in the estate plan, and what we can do is, okay, we know that they're going to be eligible, or they are eligible and they're already receiving governmental benefits. Let's set up a special needs trust for them so that, yes, when mom and dad pass away, we can make sure that there's certain assets go into that trust, and that trust will not be counted as a resource for governmental benefits, and it can supplement the governmental benefits that they are receiving. So it's not going to knock them off eligibility. Now, I will say, Once we set that trust up, we can have grandmom could leave a certain amount of money to this trust. Another person could leave money
Okay.
to these trusts. So even though the plan may be, well, we may not use this until mom and dad pass away, it's there, it's ready, and other people can leave assets to this trust.
So what type of benefits would one get if they have special needs?
That can be a huge gambit of type of benefits that they can receive. I mean, it could be as simple as just a monthly payment that they receive if they're if they meet the eligibility requirements, or it could be housing. It could provide waiver funding for companionship, for job coaching, for and obviously the big one, I guess, is medical care, medical assistance, Medicaid. So the eligibility for governmental benefits is huge out there if the people meet those requirements.
Right. So by the sound of it, there's probably a full array. There may be some who need full care, and there may be others that would receive like a stipend from the government, is what you're saying? Almost like a disability payment?
Yeah, they could just be receiving, say, SSI,
Which is
a Social Security income payment to them that is based on just their eligibility. That let's say a person with autism turns 18, maybe still be in the school system, but because they reached age 18, they're the age majority, they can apply for benefits and they can receive that monthly payment from the government.
So if someone does qualify, and you mentioned age 18, I suppose that's right around the time with which they're graduating high school. But once they receive that benefit, do you find that they still, in many cases, they could receive an income that is almost like a Social Security? I think of it as Social Security in a way that helps the parents to be able to support them. Is that what the purpose of it is?
It's not so much to help the parents, I don't think. At that point, most times the individuals can stay in school past age 18.
Right.
But that payment is really looking at the individual, that it would help them provide some maybe payments for rent, that if they're staying with mom and dad, or maybe they're not, maybe they're moved on to a group home or some other residential situation, and it would provide, say, for food that they may be receiving.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, maybe mom and dad can't provide the care, and now the child is 40 or 50. Those payments can go up. They can provide for extra care for them to move into different types of living arrangement.
Okay. So tell me more about the trusts.
Yeah, the trust is a great vehicle to provide assets to them when mom and dad die. In the past, they would maybe just not include them in their will. They would leave it to another child, but that has some consequences that could happen. Maybe the other child gets divorced. Maybe the other child gets in a car accident and gets sued or something. So this is a way to just leave those assets to the trust that can provide to supplement the governmental benefits that the individual would be receiving.
I've seen that before. In the one instance that I said that I have a client who has a severely disabled autistic child, that they set aside the money in a trust.
Yeah, and the trust is a great way. I mean, supplementing the government benefits that are out there, that can provide a wide gambit of care. I mean, if let's say the benefits are only providing for food and housing, well, the special needs trust can pay for clothing. The special needs trust can provide for recreation if they want to go to the beach. It can provide for other type of job counseling or something that the government benefits say wouldn't be able to provide. This trust can step in and provide that.
So what are the limits of assets or income that a special needs person is allowed to have in order to qualify for benefits?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's obvious. It's actually state kind of dependent, what state that they're in, what medical assistance or Medicaid that they are receiving, and it could depend on whose house that they're in. Is it at a one-person house, two-person house who's receiving governmental benefits? But I would say in general, you are looking at probably around a $2,000 resources that they can have, that they can save.
That's not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money. And we can speak about another, we've talked about special needs trust. There is another vehicle that the government has allowed, is what's called an ABLE account.
I've heard of that before. Is that something new?
It's relatively new. Obama signed it in a couple years ago,
Right.
and it is a savings vehicle up to $15,000 a year that individuals can put money in there. And let's say they're working and they can only have $2,000.
The special needs person is contributing to it.
Other people can contribute to the individual's able account as well.
Okay.
But I think the situation, they're working, they can only have $2,000 of resources. Let's set up an ABLE account. We can move some of your money over to there that it can save and it can grow tax-free.
Right.
And it's not going to count them against their eligibility.
Well, that's good. It's okay. Okay. That's interesting.
That's a great vehicle to use, but again, it has some restrictions up to the $15,000 a year.
That can be contributed, doesn't matter who. It could
Doesn't
be
matter
the
who.
parent, it could be the actual disabled person.
But they count both people as only $15,000 can be put into this
Okay.
each year, whereas a special needs trust, you can put $15,000, you can put $1 million into
Sure.
this trust. It's not going to affect how much money you can put in. So the trust has a little bit more, ease of use, that you can contribute right away. It doesn't grow tax-free, but it's able to take an inheritance, or if the person, let's say, gets in a car accident or something like that, even though that's a different type of special needs trust, it's a way to fund it, and it's not going to count against their eligibility.
Well, that's an interesting concept. So, and you hear of this, I don't have any specific examples of clients, but someone could be in a car accident and become severely disabled, and they receive a large settlement. Are you saying that the settlement would go into a special needs trust for that individual?
That's correct. So the mom and dad situation that I described, coming in to make a special needs trust for their plan, that's what's called a third-party special needs trust.
Okay.
The one where the individual gets in a car accident, let's say they're receiving government benefits, and then all of a sudden they get in a car accident and they receive a $50,000 settlement. You can set up what's called a first-party special needs trust.
Right, okay.
And those funds can go in there, and they can continue to get governmental benefits, but what the government says is when you pass away, whatever's left in there, what didn't supplement already your government benefits, whatever's left when you pass away, we get paid back.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm thinking of it more from the perspective of if I'm driving and I get hit by a drunk driver and it really messes me up and I become disabled, I better be getting more than $50,000. So let's say I get a distribution of $2 million. What happens to that money? Do I set it into a trust, or is it something that, I guess that money is designed to support me, but.
Yeah, I think that would be a determining with the situation that would occur, because let's say these private funds are going to be able to provide your care. Well, then you wouldn't then put it into, say, a payback special needs trust, because once you become eligible for the government benefits, now the government's going to be saying, oh, well, then maybe we do want to get paid back from that trust.
Right. Have you ever asked a really stupid question, and after you ask the question, you realize how dumb it was?
I never do that.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I just did it. So I tell you what, on that note, let's take a break, and we'll take a commercial break, and we'll be back in a minute. So stay tuned. We'll be back in about a minute. Please see your commercial break. Thank you.
Ashley Owens. I am your personal networking concierge, and I host a show on RVN TV called Connect to Success, where I interview power networkers in the greater Philadelphia and South Jersey area. So join me every week, 12:30 on Thursdays during your lunch break, and now on Fridays at 9 and 9:30 p.m. We'll see you next week.
this plus this equals this plus this and this. Don't drink and drive.
What makes a temple owl? Meet Stella. She's wise, fierce, and she's not alone. Temple University, where owls call home. We are the cherry and white. The city is our classroom, and we lead the rush hour, making our mark on every field around the world. A world without Temple, well, that's like the sky without the North Star. Temple, never stopping.
Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained with my guest, Steve Potts from Herr Potts Potts, who's a special needs attorney. And it's good, we needed that little break because of the fact that I asked one of the dumbest questions I probably asked today. Okay, so therefore I still have time the rest of the day. But anyway, Steve, thank you again for joining me.
Yeah.
And when it comes to trust, I want to focus back on the trusts again. Because a trust, there's more to a special needs trusts. Aren't there other components that, like a power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, and understand there's a mental health power of attorney? Elaborate on that if you could, please.
Yeah, once a person becomes the age majority in Pennsylvania, it's 18, they are considered emancipated adults.
Right.
And some families feel that maybe the individual's not really ready or doesn't have the capacity to make these types of decisions, financial,
Right. Sure.
healthcare, and that maybe they may be taken advantage of.
Sure.
So they want to protect them, and at that point, a decision would be made because we meet with lots of families about these types of issues. You know, do we want to possibly do a power of attorney, or possibly even go down the road of guardianship? And those two things help the individual with decisions in the future, either financial or healthcare types of decisions. The power of attorney, which probably a lot of people have heard about, is you are signing a contract saying, yes, I'm allowing this person to make either healthcare or financial decisions for me.
Wasn't a healthcare power of attorney like the medical power of, I'm familiar with this on the non-special needs side. So what's the difference between those that are needed for special needs, or are they basically the same as for any regular 18-year-old in college?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously adjust the documents, but there are a lot of provisions that would remain the same. But we do adjust the documents to cover situations that maybe special needs individuals would face.
Okay.
But it's this agreement that they would sign and say, yes, I'm going to have mom and dad be my power of attorney. You know, they're going to help me make decisions. What the power of attorney doesn't do is, though, it doesn't stop the individual from making their own decisions.
Right.
It's just mom and dad can help me.
It offers, right, it gives the ability for somebody else.
Correct. And also they can continue to sign contracts. They can continue to do other things. Whereas the guardianship is a different type of way to help the individual, and it's a court. You have to go to court, you have to petition the court, you have to go in front of a judge usually, and you have to have a doctor's report, an expert report done on the individual to see if a doctor does believe that it would make sense to have a guardianship. And what it does is say that the court orders or puts in an order that says, yes, this person doesn't have the capacity to make these types of decisions, and we are appointing mom and dad or brother or sister, whoever, as guardian to make these decisions for them.
So does that render, if a person then has guardianship or receives guardianship, and let's say it's a parent, does that render them as almost like a child again? And I'm just thinking of trying to make the comparison between your UGMA and UPMA accounts, where the child does not have access to the money themselves without a gatekeeper. Does this now with guardianship take and hand the keys over to the guardian?
It sort of does. It does. I wouldn't say it's exactly like that, but it does give the guardian the full ability to make the financial decisions.
Well, what's the difference between that and the power of attorney?
Well, the power of attorney, if the individuals say you go into a bank and says, I'm taking the $5,000 out, and the power of attorney says, no, you're not taking the $5,000 out, the bank's going to give the $5,000.
Right.
If you go in with the guardianship and the person says, give me the $5,000, the bank's going to say, I'm listening to the guardian.
Right, okay, so that is similar to someone who's under the age of majority.
It's similar, I guess. What brings it up to me is that there are court mechanisms to, let's say the guardian isn't doing the right thing. Maybe isn't allowing the person to do work that they want to do, or just something that they're not really doing what's in the best interest.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be harder for a child to take mom and dad to court,
Well,
whereas
sure.
there is a mechanism for the individual to go back to court to say, my guardian's not doing the right thing.
Well, but then the problem is that if the individual is not of the mental capacity to be able to do it, that seems hard. And who's typically the guardian? Is it generally a parent?
Generally, a parent,
Yeah, okay.
But you get into situations where it's, well, the individual's been living at home for 50 years, and mom and dad, or dad has passed, mom's still living, but mom now is 90 or something. She can't be guardian forever. Let's come into some transitional planning.
Okay, I got
We
you.
don't
That
want an
makes sense.
emergency situation that mom passes away, and then all of a sudden we have child still, or not child, but the individual living at home, where now there's no adults, there's no guardian, so we want to get some transitional
It's almost
planning.
like a successor guardian.
Yeah.
Because the other thing too is that if you have one guardian, something could happen to that individual.
Correct.
Die suddenly or whatever.
Right.
They could become disabled themselves.
Right, and that's why we do like to have some transitional planning in the estate planning. We want to talk about where do you guys see yourself in the future? Where do you see, is he living at home, or is he living in a group home? Maybe he's living with another family. We don't want to be in a situation where mom is 90 years old and is just overwhelmed with the decisions that have to be made.
Right, or is just not physically capable of handling the disabled person.
Correct,
Child.
and that's sometimes where the county has to step in, and then we get calls from the county. Oh my gosh,
And that's too
here's
late.
this situation. What's going
Sure.
on? What can we do? And then it's an emergency. type
Well,
of
you know what?
situation.
I'm glad you brought that up, because what I wanted to do while we still have time is, this all sounds easy, okay? However, I want to hear some bad cases of what happened. I don't want to scare the viewers, but I want the viewers to understand cases that are mainstream that people wouldn't have thought of, pitfalls. What situations have you encountered in your professional career where people should know they need to do this? They really need to be serious about this.
I think the one that we just talked about is the biggest one, I feel, because it's the scariest, that the parents are getting older and they haven't done the transitional planning. They've done everything right up to them, but they haven't done that extra step because they don't want to consider the fact that they're not there because they've cared for their child this long. That's the big one. We really need to do some transitional planning. The other one that I get the call is grandfather left $50,000. We've had it in a bank account for all these years, but we tried to apply for governmental benefits and we got denied. What do we do? And that's where we have to do that other type of payback special needs trust. If that's what's needed, we can move those funds over. It's going to take time because we have to get the.
You say payback special needs trust. That means at the end, if they're going to take what's remaining of that $50,000 and it goes to the government.
Right, the government keeps tabs on what services they're being provided. So they're going to know how much they put out. So if they put out, $40,000 and there's only 30, they'll take that $30,000.
Right.
But I do want to, it is different from, say, mom and dad doing planning prior. If mom and dad are doing that planning beforehand, they can set up their own special needs trust. They put their monies directly to that trust. When the child passes away, they can have it go to their other children.
Right.
So if you do that planning prior, you have that set up, then we're not worried about paying back the government.
Well, it's interesting because, again, I'm experiencing just almost everything that you're telling me. I'm having that experience. The thing that I would think is like a successor guardian. You know, I think about the parent, the sole parent, taking care of a special needs child, someone who's severely autistic, living at home, but there's only one parent. I would have to imagine not just the transition, there needs to be a successor guardian, no different than having a will, or you're like, who's going to take care of my minor children if I'm a single parent?
Right.
Are there successor guardians also established?
We always ask, let's put this in the will. In Pennsylvania, we can do that. We can put that in the will, and the courts will recognize that you want these people to be the successor guardians after you pass away. You know, the scary situation is, well, there's no other children. They only had one child, say. And now the last parent is passing away. Who's going to be that next guardian?
Right.
And that can be a scarier one. There are professional guardians.
Meaning like a home of some sort?
No, there are individuals who that's their
Really?
service that they provide. They're professional guardians.
Interesting.
But you know, if there can be a family friend or somebody in the family, I mean, it's usually, most of the times, it's better to get somebody who's close to the situation, knows the situation.
Of course. So we're wrapping up here. It's all good stuff. If you've got a few seconds, is there anything that you feel the viewers would benefit from that we didn't talk about today?
I mean, we kind of covered everything really quickly. You're right, but I think the most important thing would be to plan and plan early, which is probably a concept that.
Oh yeah, proper prior planning prevents poor performance, right?
There you go.
Heard it here first.
I think that's the most important, because if I'm meeting with parents with a young child with special needs, we can get that plan in place. We can meet every few years, you know, to make sure everything is right. We're going to be looking at the finances. We're looking at the beneficiary forms. You know, we don't want to be in a situation where, you know, we've done everything right, but we left the life insurance to the individual.
Oh, I know.
The child.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we're doing it early, and we're covering it all, and we're just checking in every couple of years, you know, to make sure.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, this has been fantastic. Steve, thank you for taking the time. Hey, do me a favor. I want you to take a look in the camera and just let people know how they can get a hold of you to ask any questions, or if there's anything that they can do. So take a peek in the camera and have at it.
Yeah, I'm Steve Potts. I'm an attorney at Herr Potts Potts. We're located in Wayne, Pennsylvania. We have offices in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And we do the special needs estate planning. You can go to herpottsandpotts.com, or our phone number 610-254-0114.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. This was a terrific episode on special needs planning. As I indicated, it is a subset of estate planning, but for special needs children. And I've come across this before, and it is extraordinary how you really do need to plan for this, because the last thing you want to do is leave a bunch of money for your special needs child, and all of a sudden they're thrust into a situation where now they don't qualify for benefits until they spend down all of their money, and then once they do, they qualify for benefits, at which point they don't have any money to be able to supplement their needs. So just touching upon, Steve was great. He gave us some ideas. There's the powers of attorney, the guardianship, and the special needs trust, be leaving money for the special needs trust, the life insurance proceeds. And these things can be done without leaving out the other children, because I've also seen that money gets set aside to the special needs trust, and whatever monies are left over, if that special needs child passes, then at least the money can go to the other siblings. So thank you very much for tuning in. Please tune in next week. We're going to have Michelle Leahy coming in, where she's going to be talking about a subset of what Steve was talking about today, because she's a disability advocate. And I think this will tie in and spin off a little bit on what Steve said. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and thank you very much.